Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to go over the recent events where tournament organizations are starting to ban forward-facing sonar and make big adjustments to it. So stay tuned. I think you'll get some good, useful information out of it. Before we get started, be sure to check out the GPSstore.com. They're our partner for this year. They got some great deals going on these electronics that we're going to talk about today. They're based out of North Carolina, and will definitely help you out, get a good deal. They're great folks, and it'll help out the channel if you click on that link down below. I definitely appreciate it. Also, if you are over 40, make sure you go and get your colon cancer screening. I'm going to start saying that in every video now. I just want to remind, if I can get 1 or 2 people to go and get that screening out of the thousands of people that watch this channel a month, I will consider it a success. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first I want to go ahead and just lay out what the recent news is, just in case you haven't heard it. I've got a sheet of paper here that kind of summarizes it, so forgive me if I look down, but I want to make sure I get the information properly and get it out to you guys in the proper manner. So first of all, the NPFL has banned forward-facing sonar for the 2025 season. You probably heard about that. It's been a couple of days since that's been out. So I'm curious to get your thoughts down below on what you think of that one and the BASS rule changes that we're going to talk about here. I've got my own opinions. I'll give some pros and cons at the end of this video and kind of tell you what I think on it. It definitely impacts this channel because, you know, I do a fishing electronics channel for the most part. So let's go ahead and talk about the next one, which is the BASS rule changes. All right, so BASS stopped short of a full ban on it. They didn't really come close to banning it, which, you know, frankly, I never really considered that they would. I really didn't even know they were in the process of making changes. So I do think it is good of BASS to at least listen to what its members are saying. It seems like they're definitely doing that. Whether you fall on the pro-FS forward-facing sonar or anti-forward-facing sonar, it's still an interesting fishing topic. So that's one of the main reasons why we're going to go ahead and talk about it. Honestly, I'm kind of in the middle on this. You know, obviously I enjoy catching fish with my live scope. I also enjoy catching fish without it. So, you know, I grew up without one. Been fishing for, shoot, I don't know, almost 40 years now, gosh. And, you know, just recently got a forward-facing sonar. So I enjoy both, but I can see where it definitely needs to probably be at least limited, like Bass has done for tournament fishing. All right, and so with that being said, what Bass has done for the 2025 season, that's the upcoming season, is they have limited it to 1 forward-facing sonar unit on the boat. So there were folks like Takuido, those folks. They were having, like, you know, 5 and 6 transducers all over the boat, which would allow them to basically put those on while they're driving in the cockpit here, and basically just scan all around the boat in real time. And that really eliminates a lot of practice time that you would normally have to do. So I think that is a good rule change where they've at least limited the number to 1 forward-facing sonar. Okay, next, that forward-facing sonar has to be on the trolling motor itself on front. So no separate poles, no forward-facing sonars in the back of the boat or off to the side or anything like that. It's got to be on the front, and you can only have 1 of them, so you can't have 1 in forward mode and 1 in perspective mode like a lot of folks did, which frankly I would find useful as well. So you're going to have to pick up the trolling motor, flip it around if you want to use perspective mode, and do that, you know, go through that effort to do that. I do think that's going to probably lead to possibly the electronics companies making it to where they'll be able to flip that somehow, you know, upcoming years from now, maybe or so, to where that would be the next technology I could see coming up to where they would allow that to flip. Maybe if BASS sticks with this rule or outright bans it, maybe that will inhibit that technology from coming. Who knows? But that's just kind of my guess and my opinion as to what the next logical step would be to make a sonar that would basically flip with a switch of a button type of thing. All right, the next one is they have limited the screen size to 55 inches total for the boat. So if you think about that, you're still able to have that big 22-inch screen up front if you like, and then 2 12-inch units back here, and you would still be within that 55-inch range. They don't limit the ways, the configurations that 55 inches could come into play. So Somebody could make a 55-inch unit up front and have none back here or whatnot. I do think it's a good idea to limit the size of the fish finders that go on your console to perhaps 12 inches, because having two big 16-inch units right here in the front really makes it hard to see over, and I think that could be a safety issue as well. So I think that's a good idea. They didn't really do that. You could still have the two 16-inch ones up here, that'd be 32, and then have another 16 up front, and you would still be within that range. But you know, that's just something to keep in mind. I do think it would be a good idea to limit the size of the graphs that you have at the console. All right, and next they have a limit of one trolling motor for the boat itself. So you're no longer able to have the little trolling motors on the power poles that would allow you to stop on a dime and, you know, drift back and forth and that kind of thing. I've never used one of those, so I don't really know exactly how they work. I can see the benefit of it. I know the first time I saw them, I thought it was hilarious, but it's actually a real thing. But that is no longer available as well. And then the final or the final two things I should say, is they've incorporated some. They're going to look really hard at the schedule diversity of the tournament circuit itself and try to make it cover a realm of fishing techniques. They somewhat already do that, in my opinion. You know, the first tournaments start, you know, usually in Florida in the South. It was in Texas this year, I understand that, and that one was dominated by forward-facing sonar. And then, of course, the New York lakes and those upper lakes, smallmouth type fisheries were, of course, dominated by them as well. And then you had a smattering of stuff that went on in the middle of the season. But I do think it's a good idea to schedule that diversity. I would love to see them go back out to California, out west. You know, go to Clear Lake, you know, Shasta or any of those places like that. I think that would be really cool. I know they only did that for a season or two back in the, early 2000s. But I thought that was really cool. I'd love to see that again. I don't know how much that would play into the forward-facing sonar debate, but that would be a cool thing to see. I don't really anticipate it happening anytime just because of the logistics, and you know, that's really a topic for another discussion, but I just thought I'd throw that out there when it comes to schedule diversity. I'd like to see something besides, you know, going a little further west than Texas, but that's just my opinion on that. And then finally, the last one is that they eliminated the ability to have the LVS 62, I believe it is, the saltwater live scope, which can, you know, scan out way further than the freshwater ones. So I think that was probably a good change as well. And so now that I've listed all those, what I'm going to do is go over some of the pros and cons, that I just wrote down. And really, if you have your own, please write them down below. It'll definitely help out. I'd love to get a discussion going. You know, I don't hate on anybody, whatever their opinion is, as long as we keep it, you know, civil. And I would love to have that, whether you're for forward-facing sonar, against it, whether you don't think it should be allowed in tournaments, whether you think us old geezers like me, you need to grow up and learn how to use the new technology, whatever the case may be sure to leave that down below. I'd love to have that discussion. All right, so let's go over these pros and cons that I just came up with. And again, these are my opinion. If you got your own opinion, definitely leave it down below. Not trying to offend anybody or anything like that. So number one, the pros, standardization. I think it's good to have a standard across the playing field for everybody. I think it'll help level the playing field a little bit. You know, with when I read on Bass, one of the articles said that people were spending anywhere from, you know, $9,000 all the way up to $50,000 on their electronics. So that's a big range, and this will help narrow that down some. There'll still be some disparity, granted, but at least everybody will be on the same field, and there won't just be this limitless ability to add electronics onto the boat. It'll also help limit the amount of money spent on electronics. I already kind of said that. It also helps limit the barriers to fishing the BASS Tour because of all the money that it now takes, or at least it took last season. You know, you couldn't compete unless you spent thousands of dollars on electronics like these folks did. So bringing that down, I think, is going to allow other anglers to come in that, you know, are better overall fishermen, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. Rather than just being honed in on forward-facing sonar. So I think bringing that down, leveling the playing field is definitely a positive and a good step in the right direction as somebody who has an electronics fishing channel. So Schedule diversity is already, is always good. I kind of already talked about that already. I think it may help the TV presentation. You probably won't see as many people just staring at their backs looking at it. Me personally, while I didn't like looking at somebody's back the whole time, I did think it was kind of cool when they showed the camera looking at the forward-facing sonar and you could at least see what that person was doing with it. That, as long as they were showing that, it didn't really bother me. But I can definitely see how the TV presentation could be benefited by these rule changes. And then finally, I would just say that some change is better than none. This may not go far enough, which is going to be one of the cons. It may not go far enough in some people's mind. It may go too far in other people's mind. But I do think some change was certainly warranted. And I think they were seeing that and getting that vibe based on the actual anglers that were in the fishing that Elite Series. And I should say, going back to the other points, there was no mention that I saw, at least at the time of this video, as to whether or not this would impact other tours in Bassmaster, whether it would, in other words, whether it would impact the Opens or anything below that, college level, that type of thing. I didn't see any mention of that yet. So perhaps that'll come out in the next day or two. If it does, we'll be sure to talk about it then as well. Some of the cons. Okay, like I said, some of them say it doesn't go far enough. I do still think some tournaments will be determined by forward-facing sonar, or dominated by forward-facing sonar, I should say. And that just goes without saying. If you're going to have that diversity, then you're going to have tournaments that are still dominated by it, even if there's just one graph there or one transducer there in the front, because when that bite is on, it's very tough to beat. I could just say that. So I still think there'll be some dominated by that. That could be a pro or a con depending on your situation and where you fall on the argument. It's really unclear in my mind. Another con is to whether it'll help the TV presentation, because you still have a unit up front and you're still going to have people looking down at it and whatnot. If it's there, people are going to use it. I can't blame them for doing so. They're trying to win thousands of dollars, and if that tool is going to help them do that, I can't get mad at the angler for doing that. It's not their job to make the TV presentation any better, although their livelihood does depend on it somewhat, I will say. And then the final con is that it's just kind of possibly arbitrary. Now, Bassmaster did say that they talked to all the anglers, and this is what they came up with in their focus group, if you will. They didn't call it that, but that's the term I'm going to use. So it does sound like they went about it in a good way. I don't think it would have been realistic to expect them to ban it outright yet, and whether that would even be a good thing. Sometimes knee-jerk reaction in the other direction isn't good either. So, but with that in mind, these changes seem like they could be a little bit arbitrary in terms of the number of, where did they get 55 inches from and that type of thing. So maybe they did some kind of scientific study that I'm not aware of. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the rule changes. Those are the rule changes that I just laid out for you. Again, be sure and comment down below. I definitely would appreciate it if we get a discussion going. With that in mind, be sure, again, get that colon cancer screening if you are over the age of 40, even if you're below that, because those rates are going up for younger folks as well. Be sure to check out the gpsstore.com. I sure would appreciate it. Again, this is Rob with Instinct Bassin. Trust your gut. I'll see you on the water and see you in the next one.